Chapter 10, Shadows of Aftermath. From an aerial vantage. Dreamlike, perhaps beyond the fly's final consciousness, the square revealed its turmoil. Security details rushed the stage, forming a protective ring around the collapsed leader. Medics frantically administered aid. Officers barked commands, shoving back the press of the crowd. Flags that moments before fluttered in triumph now dipped in uncertainty. The speaker, still gasping, was eased onto a gurney. Sirens wailed as an ambulance, marked with a red cross, arrived at the grand building steps. Soldiers parted to let the medics pass, though a wave of confusion still pulsed among them. Some in the crowd craned their necks, desperate for a glimpse of their fallen leader. Others milled about in frantic uncertainty. Should they stay or flee? In that swirl of chaos, the fly's body lay near the foot of the podium. Its life ebbed away. Small, unnoticed by nearly all, yet the catalyst for the event's abrupt and violent end. A single day's existence had intersected with a historical moment, forcing a sudden, jarring turn. Within minutes, the speaker was loaded into the ambulance, flanked by a personal guard detail. The vehicle's engine roared, its siren cutting a path through the disoriented throng. Some onlookers chanted the leader's name. Others stood in stunned silence. Rumors spread like wildfire. Had it been an assassination attempt? Was the leader poisoned? No one could have guessed the real culprit was a mere fly, drawn by the bright lights and the force of a single inhalation. Gradually, the square emptied of civilians, many drifting off in subdued clusters. Some still clutched flags and banners, uncertain what to do with them. The grand stage, adorned with towering banners and columns, loomed forlorn against the night sky. Spotlights flickered off, one by one, until the once festive plaza lay cloaked in a somber darkness. Under that cover of night, the significance of the day's events would be debated, contested, and perhaps spun into propaganda. But for now, all that remained was the hush of a city, trying to comprehend the sudden collapse of its central figure. Streets that had been jam-packed minutes before grew eerily quiet. Footsteps echoing as small pockets of people headed home or rushed to hospitals for updates. A cluster of soldiers still surrounded the stage, picking up dropped flags, dismantling equipment. One officer bent down, noticing the tiny form of the fly on the wooden boards. With a faint look of distaste, he flicked it aside with a gloved hand, unaware of the creature's pivotal role. The fly's body landed unnoticed in a crack between the stones. Above, the heavy clouds that had lingered all day finally released a gentle drizzle. Raindrops patterned the city, washing away dust, soaking the flags, and damping the echoes of the night. Water trickled through the cracks in the plaza, pooling in low spots, carrying with it the remnants of confetti and debris. Somewhere in that dimness, time continued its measured march. The crowd's roar merged with the distant thunder of war machines that still lurked on the horizon. The city's fate, and perhaps the course of the conflict, had been nudged by the random flight of a creature with a single day to live. In a strange, paradoxical moment, the fly's brief existence became intertwined with the fate of a man who aimed to shape history. While the crowd might never know the cause, the speaker's sudden incapacitation might have sown seeds of doubt in his followers, a fracture in the image of unassailable power. or perhaps the event would rally them further. History is never so linear. But for the fly, there was no afterlife to observe these ripples. Its one day had ended, leaving behind only the question, was it fate or mere chance? Did the fly's final collision carry destiny? Or was it a random spark in the cosmic tapestry? Night deepened. The city, still humming with scattered voices and clanking vehicles, wore a mantle of confusion. In some distant sector, searchlights continued to sweep the sky, perhaps anticipating air raids or signaling a state of high alert. Yet amid the gloom, the city's monumental facades retained their grandiose poise, as if carved from the bedrock of an empire that believed itself eternal. And so the stage darkened, the flags drooped in the rain, and the memory of a single fly's mission lingered like a whispered echo. The fleeting question remained, could one day, one tiny life, truly alter the course of what was to come? The answer, if it existed, rested with the slow churn of tomorrow's events. Events the fly would never see. History's tides might shift subtly or dramatically because of this night, but life, in all its forms, would continue on. In some other meadow, at dawn, another fly would awaken, carrying the same spark of wonder and the same burden of mortality. Epilogue, a lingering mystery. Under the dim lamplight of a near, empty square, a solitary figure stood, rain glistening off a long coat. The podium lay empty now, the banners tattered and drenched. Steam rose from vents near the massive government building, ghostly wisps against the stone facade. The figure gazed at the very spot where the speaker had collapsed. A hush still clung to the place, heavy with the residue of shock. If one listened carefully, they might still hear the echo of collective chanting, and the screech of a microphone falling to the ground. The figure shivered, pondering the fragility of power and life itself. He'd heard rumors of an assassination attempt, of sabotage, even of a curse befalling their leader. Yet he'd seen it happen. Saw the man choke mid-sentence, cuffed into silence by what exactly? Some said the man had swallowed a bug, a trifling detail, easily lost amid the evening's chaos. And yet, if it were true, how could something so insignificant undo such a grand display of force and ceremony? The drizzle had eased, leaving puddles on the cobblestones. The figure took a final step toward the podium, letting his thoughts wander. The entire city had been on edge for weeks, anticipating that grand speech. Now, no one knew what would happen next. Orders from above would surely filter down by dawn, perhaps turning this strange fiasco into an even more fervent call to arms. Or perhaps seeds of doubt would blossom. Only time would tell. But the figure found himself haunted by a peculiar thought. A single day in the life of a fly, could it, end in such a momentous intersection? Shaking his head, he told himself the notion was absurd. And yet the simplest explanation seemed to be that the speaker's own breath had drawn in a small insect, triggering the cough that toppled an empire's rally. At least for tonight. Stepping away from the puddles, he imagined the little insect's final day. Born at sunrise, dead by dusk, woven into the tapestry of a world at war. A cosmic joke or destiny. The question hung in the air. He turned to leave, his footsteps echoing across the deserted plaza. Night had grown silent except for a distant rumble. Could be thunder, or maybe artillery. Ahead, the city's tall spires and imposing structures loomed, silent witnesses to everything that had transpired. Life would go on, wars would continue or end, rulers would rise or fall, and a new dawn would erase the night's confusion. But one small event would remain etched in memory, retold with a mixture of bewilderment and awe. In the darkness, a single life, fragile, fleeting, had irrevocably intersected with power. And whether random or destined, it served as a reminder that nothing is certain, and no one is truly invincible. The square emptied, the rain-washed stones reflecting the faint glow of the street lamps. Somewhere in a distant meadow, a new fly might hatch by morning's light, blinking into a world filled with both wonder and horror. Perhaps, if it could know, it would sense the echo of one who came before, who in a single day tasted life's sweet fruit, and soared on unsteady wings toward a moment that changed everything. End.
Thank you so much for listening, and if you are still awake, please do me a huge favor. Just like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it.